We both obviously picked up on the white t-shirt with a film poster memo. What are you rocking?
No, it's not a film poster. It's like a little
What is
card.
it?
It's got
Oh,
like Ghibli vibes or something there, doesn't it?
it does. I thought it was Ponyo for a second.
No, I wish it was. No, it's just a regular cartoon, unfortunately. But
So I
yours is
mean, so
this is Bender, right?
John Bender, the one and only.
Iconic. I love
I'm Danny. This is my sister Gabby.
it.
Essentially, we were both obsessed with podcasts, the paranormal, films, TV, spooky stuff, Reddit posts. What else can I even think of? Mr. Nightmare, Let's Read, Radio Rental. All of the podcasts are like Uncanny. We both have an obsession with them and thought, what's a hobby we can do together? Whilst also getting to spend some time together as well, seeing as though we're on different time zones, different continents as well. I live in Australia, we're both from the UK. Gabs lives in Taiwan. So we thought, what's a better way to not only share our views and excitement over different things, whether that be scary stories that we've heard, scary movies that we've watched, which is going to be the main premise of this episode, but also just to spend some time together chatting anyway, seeing as though we don't really get to do that often because of the time difference and work, yada yada yada. But yeah, we just love podcasting in general and listening to podcasts, watching and consuming that sort of media. So we just thought we'd let the two things combine really and see, just give it a crack.
I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it
You
better.
prob- you probably could have, but yeah, yeah. So essentially, we're sisters who love the genre, who want to get involved and do a bit ourselves, essentially.
Are we sisters? God.
But for today, yeah,
Today.
we'll see how it goes, and then maybe by the end of it, before we get into the main premise, which is a movie review, is I've got a little bit of a headline, just some news I read that I thought would be quite funny to open with. We can like discuss before we get into the movie, if that's all right with you.
It's fun for me because I have no idea what this is. So I am looking forward to being surprised.
Don't get too excited. First of all, you might have seen it on TikTok because you know how TikTok is. We all have the same feeds, and that's where I first saw it, and then I looked into it more.
Okay, okay. Hit me with it.
Okay, so the news item reads: this is the headline per se. Autistic man stranded on desert island asks rescue team for a couple more weeks. The
That's so funny.
website it was found on, or the publication, was called the Daily Tism,
God's sake.
an actual publication.
Yeah.
Obviously the most reputable source you could think of. So it just reads blah 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 blah. So an autistic man who became stranded on a desert island after a shipwreck has asked the search and rescue team who found him if they wouldn't mind fucking off again. Reports confirmed. Concerns have been growing for Eddie Albington, 45, ever since he was the only member of his crew not recovered within hours of the wreckage. But despite his family's fears, Albington was reportedly not just surviving, but thriving. Rescue worker Graeme Hart said he was looking a little thin, but otherwise he seemed in weirdly good spirits for someone who'd been isolated from society with seemingly no hope of return. We usually get a hero's welcome, Hart explained, but when Mr. Albington saw us, he responded, "Oh, for fuck's sake."
I love
That,
that.
that's the end of the article. It was a very small snippet.
That's iconic because I feel like it's not just, I mean, it's hilarious because like obviously he's autistic and having autism makes it like hard to operate around people. But I feel
Mhm.
like even a lot of people would be like, no, just leave me on the island. I don't have to work. I don't have to
Yeah,
be with people. Like, just leave me on this fucking island. That is so
I know
funny.
I would.
Mm. Although I will say, do you know where the island was? Do you know anything else? Because I'm like, my only concern is survival. Otherwise, I'd like the rest. But I'm like, I don't want to hunt. I don't want to get like, if there's plenty of fresh fruit, we're fine.
Do you know I actually don't know where the island was? So you can blame the researcher, you can tell him a rookie. But yeah, he was just enjoying himself by the sounds of it, which good on him. Good on Eddie. I mean, yeah, I mean, also, I don't know how true this is. Like, there was an actual article about it, but I'm like, something about this doesn't ring true. So if it is fake, I don't care either way. I think it's hilarious.
True, true. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. What did you find it from a reputable source, or you don't know?
There was a few websites, but the one that I thought was of note was the Daily Tism, which like it's an actual website. They post lots of news items and they
Yeah.
have like they've
Yeah.
got like a vaccine boosters page on their website. So
That feels like such a dig, a hilarious dig at like the all the anti like
yeah.
vaccine rhetoric about like how vaccines cause autism. That's hysterical. It's just funny all this.
Oh
Is that's why you didn't pick up on that?
no, of course that's why.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Amazing.
If you're running an autism website, you have to steer into it. You have to.
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the only way you're gonna. Yeah, that's so funny. Oh, it's even funnier. That just went straight over my head. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Yeah.
And the article ends and like I'm gonna, because we didn't hear if he comes back, I'm gonna assume they left him and he's staying on the island and he's just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's how it ended.
He'll be next week's special guest. Yeah. We'll send over a laptop. So actually, I don't think he'd like the contact. Maybe we can do cameras off.
Cameras off. Dan, do you know what? I think just leave him alone, Dan. That's why he went to the island.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah, he told us to fuck off. So yeah.
That's hilarious. Also, I'm so sorry. I can't stop fidgeting. So if you see like my leg moving and stuff, I'm gonna try and stay still, but I'm so bad at sitting still for more than like
That's
5
all right. As long as it doesn't affect your audio, you're all good.
long legs. I want to talk about long legs.
Well, you're in the right place. We're late to the game because the movie actually came out, or maybe it's just in the States that they get it earlier than in Australia. Who knows? But it came out in July, so we only recently saw Longlegs. So maybe we're a bit late to the game. Who cares?
That's fine though, because we want to talk about it and we're talking about it so we can spend time together and because we have big opinions. But
True.
that makes me laugh because I was using ChatGPT to do some research because I don't know how to think for myself anymore.
Lazy.
But it is lazy. But I kept typing in long legs film and it was like, oh yeah, long legs 2022, long legs 2023. And I was like, no, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. It kept coming up with like weird, obscure documentaries and things. That's really odd.
Weird.
So I was like, did it come out earlier? No, it did. It did come out this year. You're right.
Yeah, that's strange though.
Where did you first hear about it?
I think I just had seen a TikTok or two, had that name had, I remembered the name Longlegs and then was like, oh, my boyfriend loves horror movies. We'll go and see this horror movie. So I went in like not having seen the trailer, not having seen anything, just knowing that it's a horror movie that people are saying is terrifying.
Mhm.
That's what about you?
For me, I knew long legs existed because it popped up on TikTok
Mhm.
months ago. And like when I went through my TikTok saves, it was saved. So I'd obviously like planned to watch it, but until you mentioned like let's watch it, let's talk about it. It wasn't even in my sphere. It wasn't something I was thinking about. You mentioned that you hadn't seen very much of the promo. So you don't know much about the promo before the film came out. It's so interesting. So they did a lot of like, maybe this is why people thought it was so terrifying. They did a lot of like strange marketing for it.
Okay.
Seen any of the posters? The posters are they're very like cinematic, they're very subtle, and they don't really heavily feature Nicolas Cage, which would be you'd think you'd use him to promote the film because he's the most
Yeah.
famous person who's in it, but they didn't do any of that. It was very subtle, and they did a couple of I think they call it like guerrilla marketing, not guerrilla
Mhm.
as in the animal, guerrilla as in like
Like guerrilla warfare.
guerrilla warfare. So one of the
Right.
things they did is they took out an advert in the Seattle Times using the cipher. But the cipher, that was the main body of the advert in this newspaper, and then underneath it just said by request of Longlegs.
Oh, so like
Yeah.
playing on the fact that Longlegs would have put that in there. So it didn't say about a murder or anything.
No, it didn't even mention a film. It was just,
Oh.
that's what I'm talking about. They weren't pushing it in the way that you normally see a film getting marketed.
Yeah.
I want to talk about one more promo thing they did, which is my favorite thing that they did. So
Yeah.
their billboards had a phone number on it.
Mhm.
And if you call the number, it was Longlegs' voice on the phone saying like, what's that thing he says? It's like, hello, my sweet child, the creepy thing he says.
Oh,
Film and it's him like being like, when's your birthday? And being really creepy. And then it hangs up.
I'm jealous because I wish I would have called that number.
You know, I know. It really is, it's so creepy. So maybe that's why people thought it was so terrifying, because they did an excellent job with the promo.
Yeah. Uh, Me and my boyfriend both went into the cinema. I think maybe he'd seen the trailer, but we both went in completely not knowing what was coming. Also, it was a very empty cinema, which I think added to the atmosphere as well. Not that it would have been bad with a full cinema, but it was a pretty quiet because it had been out for a long time already. And like as soon as it started, I was just like, I know I feel like I'm already got the creeps. It was late at night. We'd set the scene for like a really good situation to watch an atmosphere. Yeah.
It's the best feeling when you've like
Yeah.
set the build up is good, the cinema's quiet, so people aren't talking as well, because that can really.
Mhm.
I went to go see, I think it was The Nun 2, and people were talking all
Yeah.
around me. This girl kept using her fucking phone.
Yeah. Jail time.
It
Jail time.
takes you right out of the film. Like, I can't be scared because you're making me
Mhm.
remember that I'm in a cinema, instead of just watching the film.
I think there's just nothing like seeing a horror movie in the cinema. It just doesn't compare to watching it at home.
I did want to just mention, so it was directed by Oz Perkins, who I had
Yeah,
never heard of. Do you know this guy?
I actually don't.
I'd never heard of him. No, but Dan, do you know what he directed? Legally Blonde.
Is that real? I didn't think that's real.
Oh, he directed Legally Blonde.
Did he
I,
actually?
I Googled it.
Is that the same Oz Perkins?
I think so. He's done a lot of stuff. It's just he's
Legally Blonde was years ago.
no, he's an older guy, I think. Are you gonna fact check me right now? Don't.
No,
You can fact check me, it's fine. Um,
no, I'm just shocked. I'm a bit confused.
he's done a lot of stuff. I just think that like he's more, I don't want to say underground, but he's not like an A-list director. Some of his films that apparently have the same kind of vibe are The Black Coat's Daughter and I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, which neither of those I've seen, but I might watch afterwards now that I
Yeah.
go and I clearly like his work. Um, yeah. So I just thought that was really funny that he also directed Legally Blonde.
So now I googled it. The director of Legally Blonde is someone called Robert Leketic.
Not true. Not true. Try
Well,
again.
I don't know. I don't know where you got. Well, I did see the other two movies, and it's actually watching Longlegs has made me want to watch his other two movies, or however many he's got. I think he's only got like five, or maybe less. Um, is there a character called Oz Perkins in Legally Blonde? Is this what you're getting confused with?
Potentially. I Googled it and it came up as like a list of his body of work. Maybe he was involved with Legally Blonde, but
Oh,
didn't.
he's in Legally Blonde. He's in it.
Oh, he's an actor then as well.
He's in Legally Blonde. That's
Okay.
why his name shows up as a credit. I was so confused and I was like, what?
Okay.
There's also a movie called The Monkey coming out next year that I believe he's involved with, whether or not he's directed it or what.
I do
Um,
watch some of his other films now, so I can get a good idea of his body of
the
work.
style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Everybody was great. I really liked Micah. Is it Micah Monroe? I don't know how to say it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Micah? Have you seen the other film that she's been in, the other horror film that she's been in that's really
It
famous?
follows.
Have you seen it?
Mhm.
What did you think of It Follows?
Hang on. I haven't. I get that one mixed up with another one. I haven't seen It Follows. I haven't.
Watch It Follows. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. I really enjoyed it. I didn't recognize her. She looks quite different in It Follows. I think she looks a lot younger in
Mhm.
It Follows, but it's an excellent horror film. It's very scary. I feel like maybe I've bigged it up too much now. Thought it was scary, and I thought it had a similar vibe, indie horror films where it's very
Yeah.
beautiful to look at. It's not just cheap jump scares. It's well done. I really enjoyed it. And she's amazing. She's a great actress.
Yeah. I thought straight away when she came in, I didn't recognize it from anything else. Maybe just I've been living under a rock, who knows? But I just thought she was like amazing as like a lead in a horror. Like she just added to the eeriness straight away. Like from the offset, you could just tell that everything about her in comparison to all the other characters around her, like her partner, um, who else? Just anyone else in the police department or whatever. Like her movements were different, her voice was different, the way she was looking at different people. Like the scene when she gets introduced to Agent Carter's daughter and she's like perched on the edge of her bed, like so awkward. And like she had such an awkward like conversation with the kid. And I was like, I love her. She's just setting the scene for such a creepy atmosphere and like going past the stereo, like fighting and breaking through the stereotype of, for me anyway, I think this is like probably agreed upon that the protagonists in horror movies you can sometimes get frustrated by and annoyed at for doing the wrong thing or for, I don't know, for not acting like a real person. If anything, she was acting like not like a real person, but in the opposite direction, if you know what I mean.
I agree. I agree. I will say she did annoy me that she kept leaving the house, and like when she left the house, when she's in her house and there's a knock on the door, I was like, stay in the house. So she did irritate
She had
me.
a gun.
I don't care. She was because she was like shaking, which is like, again, it
Mm.
adds to the realism. She's a real person. But I was like,
Mhm.
no, you never need to leave the house. She was giving me like a horror, like any kind of person in a horror film who leaves when they should stay in. But yeah, she did a great job. But she's very like off-putting almost by
Yeah.
her, like awkward. You can tell that she is like, well, she's plagued by her, like the issues that are going on in her head.
Mhm.
That's why she's behaving that way. And you can see it in the way that she acts and how she's off-putting. And she did a really great job with that.
I also found out that she was like separated from Nicolas Cage the whole way through filming, and that the first time she actually saw him, like the director obviously on purpose did that, so that her initial response to seeing him was the interrogation scene, you know, just when he, spoiler alert, when he kills himself by like smashing his head into the desk. So the first time she walks into that interrogation room is her initial response to seeing him. And she said that the mic picked up her heartbeat. That's how fast it was going.
Oh my God.
I
Yeah,
know.
imagine he's off-putting looking, isn't he? We'll get to him.
A little bit.
God,
Yeah.
they did not play it halfway with his
No.
prosthetics and
No.
the whole image of him. So let's get on to him now that we're on Cage. What did you think of
Yeah.
Cage's?
Oh, I mean, in my opinion, I just thought he was amazing. Like so good. Like I think I'm kind of annoyed at myself that I had that spoiler of knowing that he was in the movie because had I, well, I mean, I don't know if I'd watched it without knowing if I would have recognized him or not because I just don't know. But I would have kind of preferred to have had it that way and be like, oh my God, who's this person that they like, you know, messed up their face and did all this CGI and then be like, what? It's him? Like, I don't know. I just think he did such a good job. And I think I talk about this, I feel like we're going to talk about this more later on, but the juxtaposition of having like a really scary character and antagonist, but also having the comedy with it, like that a few scenes where he was like screaming really like crazily and like I don't know, I feel like those are things that the audience are also going to find funny as well as scary, maybe. Maybe it's just us. I don't know.
I didn't find it funny. Like
You
he was
didn't find it funny?
no, he was so off-putting. Every time he was on screen, I was so off-put by him. There were the couple of funny, well, I'm trying to think. The one funny scene I can remember is when they cut to uh Lee Harker sat on the bed in Ruby's bedroom. That was
Hmm.
fun. But every time he was on screen, I was not laughing. I was like,
You didn't like the wink. He did like a little wink and like a little kissy,
oh,
like
nothing he did was cute. Everything,
honestly, I found that funny.
no, he was gross. Um, I'm glad you liked his performance. And
Yeah, and you've got you've got some
I
issues with it. So go
I
on.
have I have mixed feelings, and part of it is even though I haven't seen much of Nicolas Cage, I know what he's like, and I've seen clips of his work, and this is okay. A good way to sum this up is I have a quote from a Vanity Fair article that was pretty scathing of Longlegs. It was
Oh no.
yeah, it was a pretty nasty review. But the one quote that made me laugh is it says, Cage can be a fine actor, but he can also be a tiresome ham when he wants to be.
Oh, wait, is that someone who worked with him previously or just someone?
Just a Vanity Fair author, I don't know. And I get it because have you ever watched some of his very weird films where he this
Yeah.
Longlegs is not the way he acted in Longlegs is not far away from some of the other performances he's doing. And if it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think they did a good job where, especially for at least the first half, at least before he gets arrested, you don't see that much of him. The sus
Mm.
use of him really, really worked in that they didn't overdo him. Sometimes I did think it was a bit much and I would have scaled it back.
Do you think?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
he's acting.
yes.
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um,
Well, no, I do get it. Like I was trying to watch some interviews of him. And it was kind of weird because he was saying about how he was channeling his mother, but he was like, "Oh, my mother's obviously not satanic or whatever, this and that." He was like, "Oh, her mannerisms, her movements, and also her voice." And I was thinking,
to
I,
his
I don't
mother.
ever want to meet his mother. Like, I wouldn't. Like, imagine his mum watching this, thinking, "Oh, thank you very much." If she's, I don't know, but it was a kind of bit weird that he said that. He just, I think what he meant by that was like just a more androgynous sort of feel to Longlegs. Like I don't know.
Okay, well, yeah, now that you've said that, I can see that he was trying to put a little bit more androgyny in.
Yeah.
I will say this, I'm not a big fan of actors who put androgyny or it's become something of a trend of like androgyny or cross-dressing or something
Mm.
where the male villain or serial killer is somewhat moving away from being a traditional man because it's become then you get a rhetoric around men who don't follow traditional roles or don't consider themselves just men being violent or dangerous. You
Yeah.
see that in I think it's Silence of the Lambs. The villain is like a cross-dresser, and that's now become a trend.
Hmm.
But not to dwell on that because I'm sure Nicolas Cage wasn't intending that. Um,
Yeah. I do. It's something to be said, though. I guess. Yeah.
it is. It is. But yeah, I don't. I look. It just didn't work as well for me as it worked for you. Obviously, his performance.
I found him scary enough, but also like not horrifying, which I know lots of people did. Um, but yeah, I think we got just enough of him as well. Like didn't overdo it. It didn't. I didn't leave the cinema thinking, oh, I wanted more scenes of him, which I know lots of people did, but I was like, no, that's a perfect amount. We saw just enough. Um, yeah. And I think also the Agent Carter, her like accomplice guy, her partner, I loved him as well. He was so good.
Me too.
Blair Underwood. He was amazing. And I think he was a really good choice to kind of ground her like weirdness.
Just thinking
Like
that.
yeah, they really worked well together and meshed together because as like an audience watching his character, like he really made you feel worried for his family and care about him and his family and like what was going on, which I think it can be sometimes quite hard.
I liked him a lot. Yeah, he was a good
Yeah,
character. Right. They offset each other nicely.
they did.
All
They
right,
did.
let's talk a little bit about what we liked about the plots and the story.
Sure.
Is well, did you guess how it was going to end? Did you guess where it was going or not?
I'm an idiot. So no, there's a few things I didn't guess, and things that I didn't pick up on. So, which the second time round I did pick up on. So obviously, let's just talk about the fact that second time round when you're watching it, how much scarier. I mean, in my opinion, it is when you're listening to her phone conversations with her mother at the start, and you're like, oh my God, she's been on it this whole time. Like, you know, and also I didn't guess, despite Kiernan Shipka's character, the survivor, the young girl who was in the mental institute.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, she said about, oh, I've seen you before to Lee Harker. And she was like, oh, someone who looks like you. That
Mhm.
was the mother. And when I first watched it in cinema, I didn't pick up on that and I had no clue.
I'm glad you brought her up because I want to say something about her, but also
Mhm.
it's not where my mind went when I watched it the second time. I thought it was like her psychic connection and the fact that she's the doll. So she did see her. Do you know what I mean? That
Oh,
she didn't see the mother, Dan. She wasn't home. Remember, that's how she survived.
of of course.
Saw her because there's that psychic link between her and the doll, right?
Right.
So she
Yeah.
saw her because Lee Harker looked at the doll. So,
Yeah.
but
Interesting.
I'm glad you mentioned that Carrie character because rewatching it, she tells Lee Harker, "You have a doll you've just forgotten."
Mm.
Through my mind, we get the whole plot. It's there for us. We just can't put it together because they did a really clever thing where it can annoy me sometimes when you have characters who talk a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
Like Longlegs just said a bunch of nonsense. And when you go back, some of it makes sense, some of it still doesn't make sense.
Mm.
And it's the same with Carrie. Most of what comes out of her mouth felt like nonsense. And then when you go back, you're like, oh, okay, I understand.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about the mum.
Hmm.
So obviously you watch her and you know something's not right, but
Yeah.
you don't know what it is because I think it also helps that the main character is so off-putting that it's like, oh yeah, her mum's a bit off-putting too. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you have did you guess anything? Did you guess that she would have anything to do with it?
It did shock me. I think there was things that to me made sense, like the fact that they showed the door in the kitchen, and like I was like, oh, okay, I know something's behind that door. Obviously, everyone knows it's implied. Didn't expect it to lead to his little lair underground where we'd seen him sleeping. That was a huge shock to me.
I know, I know. I think the the way it was going. So obviously we knew there was a serial killer. We knew who the serial killer was as well because we seen him. And
Yeah.
then she kept saying accomplice. The main thing we didn't know was that what the cause was because we knew he was killing them, but we just didn't know how. And she kept mentioning an accomplice, but there was so much going on that it really didn't make the connection. Did you notice on rewatch how many times her mum interrupts like something that would have happened with Longlegs, like when she's in the house and her mum calls her for the second time when Longlegs is like creeping around her house. She's almost about to go down in the basement and her mum calls her.
Yeah.
It was
It was.
I really enjoyed it. Was it a perfect film? No. But I really enjoyed the plot. I thought it was a really nice meshing of the two genres, being like a supernatural horror film and a serial killer horror film. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It was like small little hints, and it was clever enough that it wasn't so overt. But it was just enough to keep the audience guessing.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about like some of the like themes and some of the like symbolism throughout. So something that I noticed on my rewatch was I think maybe I'm reading too much into the film because I notice every little detail and I'm like, why is this? Why is that?
Mhm.
When Lee is in Ruby's room and they're talking about the missing head on the statue,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thinking that was going to go somewhere or have some kind of symbolism. Like, I was wondering if maybe when her family got killed, one of them was going to lose a head, but I don't think anybody did.
No, I know exactly what you mean because you think like little nods to that are like, oh, this is gonna, yeah. But I almost like not having an answer to certain things because it's almost like more, it adds to the creepy aspect of it.
It does.
Um, I
And
don't know if you, I'm assuming, sorry, you go first.
no, I'll talk about it later, but I think that maybe we're thinking into it more than the director expected us to, because I'll
Yeah.
talk about why I think that later. Anyway, you go.
Uh, I was just gonna say I really like the pacing of it, and like I know I saw a lot of reviews saying that the pacing people found quite slow, which I don't know if it's just me, I don't know if it's where I was at because I was watching at the cinema, so you got full attention on the big screen. But like I felt like the pacing was really, really good. It got into it straight away. Not only did it get into it straight away, it wasn't hard to follow for me anyway, whatsoever. It got straight into it within like the first 5 minutes. We had like a flashback, we had present day Lee Harker, and then we also had her partner getting shot straight away. And it's like, okay, we're straight into this. So I don't know what people are saying. I disagree with that. I mean, I don't
I
think it was a slow burn at all.
No, I also couldn't disagree with the idea that the pacing was bad more. I disagree
Mm.
strongly. I did watch it at home. I found, I watched it on an illegal website, uh,
Hmm.
which I kind of wish I had seen in the cinema. And like you said, the experience would have been good.
Yeah,
But anybody who says the pacing was bad needs to really sit and think about how much content they're consuming and maybe whether their attention span is short, because the pacing was excellent.
I would
Excellent.
agree.
Really, really good. It was absolutely beautiful to look at. And every scene was well, like we were getting good information. There were no unnecessary scenes.
Hmm.
It felt like scenes didn't go on too long. And if
Hmm.
they did, they were interesting and dynamic shots enough to keep us engaged. So no, I think the pacing was excellent.
I agree completely with that. I just want to mention something that my boyfriend said to me about, there's a few times he said cuckoo when in the opening scene, and then there's the bit where he does the cuckoo thing.
Yeah.
So the reason for that is a reference, okay? Um, there's a crime called cuckooing, which is a practice whereby a person takes over another person's home and uses the property to facilitate exploitation.
Stop
So
it.
yeah, it's named after. So basically, the term comes from the bird cuckoos who take over the nests of other birds. Um, so essentially, the devil is cuckooing the families by like leading to their own like self-destruction, essentially.
Yeah. Oh my God. Because he takes over the house. And if Longlegs is taking over your house, then the
Mhm.
devil is taking over your house because they're
Yeah.
perhaps that, first of all, that's blow my mind. I love that they put that little touch in.
Mhm.
But
Me too.
secondly, that brings me on to something that I noticed that the symbolism, some of it was great, some of it was very heavy-handed. One of
Yeah.
those things that was a little bit heavy-handed, but still, it's still enjoyable, was there's a shot, it's when Longlegs gets arrested when he stood at the
Mhm.
bus stop. So just before that scene, there's a shot of the doll's face. And then as it cuts to the scene of Longlegs, the doll is like superimposed on his face as it fades away.
Mhm.
And that's obviously like a very clear image that like Longlegs is a doll or a puppet used by the devil. And that's
Mhm.
also part of the reason I think his face looks like that is
Yeah.
that he's a puppet for the devil. That's what he is. He's just being used by the
I
devil.
like that.
Mhm.
It's clever.
Yeah, it is clever. Yeah, I mean, like I say, Longlegs didn't work, the character didn't work for me quite as much as you, but I'm not saying it wasn't scary because there were so many excellent moments that they used Longlegs, especially when they were more subtle with how much of him they showed. When they just showed him from the chest up, or they showed his face in a flashing moment very fast. It was terrifying.
I just feel like everything was intentional with that movie. Everything was intentional. Every frame was intentional. Every placing of a character with whatever was behind them, every shot was intentional.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked that. I like a film that uses, because sometimes jump scares are good. I'm not gonna push jump scares completely aside because there's a time and a place for jump scares. And I like
Agreed.
it opened pretty much with a jump scare. You get the shot of the house and it's flicking between a couple of different shots, and then we suddenly see Longlegs. Um, it's and there's the dun music as well. That was pretty like jolting, I think, to go into the film.
Yeah.
And they're creating the atmosphere. Believe that was the only jump scare. There might have been one other. I think it
Yeah, I
was.
think it says a lot about a movie that's getting this like many good reviews without having that many jump scares. I think a lot of people just push it aside into the thriller category or like psychological thriller and like don't put it like with the horror genre because it lacks in jump scares, but I would disagree. I would say it's still a horror. And I think there's better storytelling sometimes when, with less jump scares, just my opinion, sometimes, potentially.
There's a time and a place for them, and if they're cleverly done, then I don't mind
Mm,
because there's something to be said about just simple biology. As much as atmosphere and building the tone can make you scared, there's nothing like an actual jump scare to get your
yeah.
heart pumping, and you want that during a horror film. So I have no problem if it's well done. I
Mhm.
think the first jump scare was excellent. The other jump scare that I'm thinking of was when we first see Carrie Ann's doll, when they first find her eyes open.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
This is I would call that a jump scare, I think.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, it doesn't matter if we knew it was coming. It's still, yeah. I don't know.
yeah. But
Yeah.
had you mentioned the reviews? Because let's talk about
Hmm.
people's opinions and the critical reception of Longlegs. What do you think?
I mean, from what I've seen, I mean, it got a 6.8 on IMDb, 60% popcorn meter on Rotten Tomatoes, and 86% tomato meter. Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
What I mean,
For
sorry, you
horror
go.
films as well, because horror films tend to do pretty badly. They get
Mm,
low reviews. It's so rare to find, like if I'm looking at a film and I see its reviews are pretty low, I'm probably not going to watch it unless it's a horror film, because horror films just are widely like undervalued, I think, and highly criticized.
yeah. I don't know why that is.
I don't know either. I think it's an undervalued category. I mean, there's no horror
Yeah,
movie category in the Oscars, is there?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because people were pissed when Hereditary didn't get nominated for anything,
Hmm.
which it should have. It was an excellent film. But
Yeah.
there is something to be said about horror, because horror films really do get undervalued for, like you said, I don't know the reason. But I think maybe some of the reason Longlegs is getting bad reception is because people are expecting to be terrified.
Yeah.
And is it terrifying? No. Is it scary? Yes, I think it
Yeah.
is. It's not terrifying though.
I'd agree with that. I think it's one of those ones that lingers with you. Like, are we gonna all be repeating those lines? Yeah. Are we gonna be repeating them in a funny way? Maybe. But
Repeating it in a funny way. What's the thing he says? Let me in. It'll be so nice. I haven't stopped quoting that since I watched the film. It's so
yeah.
this is the thing with Nicolas Cage. If it doesn't matter if you like him or you hate him, he's sticking around. Like the way that he behaves on screen, you're not going to forget it.
Mhm.
He's a bit strange.
Yeah, which makes him fit perfectly well in this genre. And he did a great job.
He did.
What would you, if you were, so out of 10, what would you give it?
I'm gonna stick with my eights. That's the initial reaction. I wanted to like lower it, but I think that was influenced by other people, and I refuse to let myself be influenced. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it an eight, I think.
I had an 8.5, and I'm actually going to knock it back to 8 because when I rewatched it, it just felt better to place it at an 8 for me. Um, but I just think it is one of those movies that, when you watch a movie and you're already thinking like halfway through or towards the end, you're like, oh, I can't wait to show this person that. Oh, I can't wait to see this person's reaction. It's one of those, which I love for a movie. And when you're just watching someone else watch a movie after you've loved it, it's that sort of movie for me anyway.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. You can, because I feel like within the first 5 minutes of a film, I can tell if I like it, but then
Mhm.
you have to get to a certain point, and especially you have to get to the end to be like, well, is it going to live up? And
Yeah.
it wasn't perfect, but I thought that the plot was good, and I enjoyed it enough for it to get an eight for me. So
Yeah, I think it was the perfect blend for me. And it was unique to start with. Like, it wasn't a sequel for a horror movie, which we've had a lot of recently. It was completely unique. It was like the perfect blend of like, oh, an investigation to do with a murderer, also like really well acted by everyone as well. There wasn't a character that stood out to me as a pointless character, or I didn't like their dialogue, or that wasn't realistic. But it was, yeah, just a perfect blend of horror, the satanic ritual, like, and religious kind of aspects to it, um, the demonic side of things, but also enough of like just eerie atmosphere as well to offset that religious themes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the religious themes, because
Mm,
I'm not a huge fan of religious themes in a film.
yeah.
I It can be hard to do, but you're right. I don't think it was overt, and that's because we stayed with Lee Harker exactly the right amount. I think it was like you said, a good balance.
Yeah.
So I'll be watching. I think I'm going to go back and watch some more of Oz's films and have a look and see some of his stuff. Maybe we can do that for another time.
Me too, absolutely, because I want to see. I mean, I'm just taking this film for what it is, but maybe this is like a pattern for him. Like maybe he's just always really good at framing things and like shooting things in a certain way. Because I liked this style a lot. I really did.
Me too. Me too. I think that it's getting unnecessary criticism.
Yeah.
People who just want to be like almost like cheap thrills. They want to go and be like scared and there to be no substance. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, it did have quite a bit of substance, in my opinion, which leads me to, and again, I don't want to ruin this for you, but that Vanity Fair article, because it was very well written, but it was scathing. And one of the quotes from it is, Longlegs is stylish, but vacus, a
But
pretty foreboding picture with nothing behind it, which was really, really harsh, I think. This is
pretty scathing review, I'd say.
scathing. It was
Yeah.
scathing. Which I don't agree because I think it was very pretty and I liked the plot.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't like this mix of serial killer and supernatural, and I disagree.
I like it a lot.
So
I really,
I think they handled it really well. I've seen a lot of comparisons to like Silence of the Lambs and Hereditary, which I
yeah,
get. Hereditary is like the obvious comparison because you've got
yeah,
something supernatural and something real, and it's being mixed, and it's also got that eerie atmosphere.
yeah.
I really I don't feel that uh Longlegs was like this direct that drew directly from anything. I think it's just a combination of what the horror genre has become.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that. I agree with that. Yeah. I like to see it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely if I can give any advice, go and see the movie and make up your own mind
Yeah.
about your opinion of Nick Cage or the actors, the director, and just like the movie itself. Because I feel like we're getting into that sort of time of the year where all the horror movies going to come out. So I feel like this is just before that. So we've got like a nice taste for it, and hopefully I mean, they've got to live up to a lot now, all the rest of the horror movies coming out, because this for me is like a really, really good start to the horror months.
I agree. I agree. And you have to share your recommendations because I'm back in the horror movie watching era now because I usually take a long break and now I'm back on it. I want to watch some more
We're back
stuff.
on.
I'm back on. I'm back
This
on.
is good. This is great. I mean, next time we film, not sure what we're going to be discussing. Maybe could be anything. Could be pop culture stuff. Could be a book. We haven't like really gone into it or decided what we're going to be discussing.
I would really like to find a good scary book, but they're hard to come by. A good scary
Yeah, they
book.
are.
Really hard to come by. Yeah. All right. Thank you, anybody who did watch our review of Longlegs. Um, I really recommend it. It's excellent. And I guess we'll see you next time with whatever we decide to do. Bye bye.
See you.